Pioneer SX1000, my all-time favorite. Let me straighten this out just a little bit. All-time favorite Pioneer receiver series. So this is the SX1000TD, manufactured between 68 and 69. Now, when I go through kind of the model information, I'm going by really kind of best guess and what I was able to find. There's not a whole lot of information when you're looking at late 60s Pioneer gear. See, the stereo light is kind of flashing. It's just gonna draw my attention if I didn't fix that. So when I go over like the models and the years and all that stuff, it's kind of best guess given what I could find. This particular one was manufactured 1969 according to the serial number. It's capacitor coupled, 50 watts per channel. Not too large, but this one is not inside a cabinet, which most of the ones that I've come across have been inside the cabinet. So I'm not sure if this one was in the cabinet and the cabinet was damaged or what, but most of the ones that I come across actually are in the cabinet. The series information, number one, I'm going to just be completely upfront with you. This is my all-time favorite Pioneer receiver series. The TA, possibly. The TA-TD, it's kind of a toss-up. The TW, not my favorite, but I'll go over that in a minute. In 1968 and 1969, there were tube receivers. There was a hybrid receiver. I'm going to call it a hybrid, but that may not be entirely accurate, it may not be the most accurate depiction of where that receiver kind of lands. And then you had solid state. So the tube receivers, as far as I could tell, you had the Pioneer SX34. You had a 34B, and I did a gear review on one that I went in and recapped and rebuilt. I think it was like my first gear review for the channel. The SX800, so that was the tube tier, 34, 34B, SX800. You had a hybrid receiver. Now, when I say hybrid, normally if I'm talking about a tube solid state hybrid, or if someone references a tube solid state hybrid, what they're talking about is the preamp amplifier. So either the preamp is tube, like on a Macintosh. The preamp is solid state and the power amp is tube. Usually that's reversed. The preamp is tube and the power amp is solid state. On the 1000 TA, the FM is tube, but the preamp and the power amp are solid state. So hybrid, yes, because it's tube and solid state, but not like a traditional hybrid when you think about it in today's terms. And it's identical to the TD. I love the TA. I'm sorry, my hand's flashing there. I love the TA and the TD. I just love everything about them. Then you have the solid state receivers. There was an LX420 and the SX1000TD that you see in front of you. Now, that was by year. Again, 1968, I could only find one 1969 product catalog, and everybody has the same catalog out there on the internet. So I couldn't find one from 68, and I found only the same one from 1969. There may have been some more receivers out there, but I just couldn't find any information about any of the other ones. And nothing immediately comes to mind, so I couldn't do like an individual, receiver search or anything like that. This was also part of the 1000 series. So the 1000 series actually spanned 67, 68, all the way to 72, possibly 73. And in that series, you had the 1000 TA, the 1000 TD, and then the 1000 TW. Now, the 1000 TW is a great receiver. I just don't like the dial glass. And I know I'm super shallow when I say that, but I don't like the dial glass on that one. But it's essentially the same receiver. It might be a little more power, or they might have a little bit more power, might be more powerful. I don't know for a fact. If I come across whatever the power rating is, I'll put a note here. The 1000s came with or without a wooden case, and I think the 34s did as well. I'm not sure about the 800, but again, I'm kind of really just talking about the 1000. The aesthetics, mid-century modern goodness is what I put in my little slide presentation, my little outline that I use for these. I just love the way these look. I love the way they look. I love the way they sound. I love the way they look. Capacitor coupled, nice warm sound. Not a ton of like low end, but it's just smooth, just really, really smooth. So the sound is mellow, very tube-like, 50 watts per channel. Hookups are easy, kind of-ish. You can get a little lost in late 60s gear. There were a couple of different additional hookups. I'll try to snap a pic or provide a pic of, there's like an HD tape on this one, I think. And then unfortunately it uses these horrible speaker adapters. These are just not fun to use at all, right? They use those on the 1000s, and they used it on the 2 series, so the X2X series, like a 727, 626. So the hookups are easy, except for the speaker terminal adapters. The operation can be tricky. Now, if you look at what we have presented to us on the front of this, power off, main and extra, and then speakers off, headphones. These are split for bass and treble, so you can independently change the level of bass and treble per channel, left and right. Balance, volume, turn that down. And you can see the FM tuner on this is fantastic. There's no antenna on this and is picking up a radio station in my basement. What was the big one that I did down here? I think the 950. The 950 didn't pull in stations as well as this one does. Then you have a series of switches here, kind of dip switch-like. So loudness, low filter, high filter, FM muting, AFC. I should have looked this up. I don't remember what AFC is. I'll post a little blurb when I go to edit this if I can find what AFC does. I think it has something to do with FM or the tuner, but I really don't know. Phono 1 and Phono 2, which is really nice. Here you have the mode, stereo left and right, and then you have the tape monitor mode, stereo left and right. This is where it gets kind of tricky. So for any other input besides tape, you use the stereo mode, and then I think you come over to tape monitor mode over here. I think, if I'm remembering that correctly. Then going to the top row, you have a selector, AM, FM mono, FM auto, phono, 1 and 2, tape, right, 7.5 and 3 3/4. That's tape HD though. So that's a different hookup than this tape. This I think it has a preamp, kind of like phono, if I remember correctly. And there's different RIAA curves, I believe, for 3 3/4 and 7.5. I think. If I, again, I'll post something or I'll add an image up here to explain that, but I think that's what those two do. And then you have auxiliary. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Phono 1 and Phono 2, sorry, I'm going to poke my head in here. I believe Phono 1 is for moving, oh no, not on this one. I thought it might have been like moving coil, moving magnet, but it just says Phono 1 and Phono 2. So I think the equalization is the same for both of those. So again, operation can be a little bit tricky, but it's not, you don't have to be like a PhD to figure it out. Right, nice smooth dial. This isn't one that'll just kind of go forever if you move it, but it's pretty nice. I love the back. I just love everything about this. I do. I just love everything about it. All right, serviceability. I would say intermediate because it does require quite a bit of disassembly depending upon what you're trying to do. Things to look out for in terms of service or repair. I couldn't find anything that was like an immediately fix or repair or replace on this, but I can tell you going through probably half a dozen or more of these, probably more of, and typically it's a TW that crosses my bench. I've had one TA, several TDs, and a whole bunch of TWs. The most common thing that I have come across, out of spec capacitors, which is typical of something that's over 50 years old. And then failing transistors. Transistors will get noisy on these, fail, they'll pop, and all of those things. I don't know if this has bad transistors in it, but it's one of those things you'll want to go and look into on your own if you're getting into one of these to repair. So kind of common things. Caps failing, transistors failing. Again, they're not really designed to go for 50 or 60 years, but that doesn't mean they can't. That doesn't mean that they're not fine. But I found those to be very common issues with these. When you're looking at one of these, so some things that you want to be aware of. Number one, condition, completeness, cabinet, if that's important to you. You can find cabinets for these, they're not expensive. But completeness is important, so make sure it has all the knobs. Now, you can also find, because I made so many of these, you can find knob covers and things like that. And these are all two-piece. And what I have found is it is very common for the glue that binds the base, the plastic inner knob. That will it'll separate from the outer. And I typically, whenever I come across one of these, I have to glue one or two or three of these knobs. I had to glue the selector knob on this one because it just popped right off. I went to pull the knobs off and it just came apart. So that's one thing to look out for. But again, you can find these knobs. If these are broken, these are not easy to replace. This is actually a part of an assembly. I don't remember if these are, I think these are individual units. But I remember I replaced one on one of the very first SX1000s that I worked on. And I think it's just an individual piece here. But again, those might be a little bit harder to find because these are very reliable receivers. And they're really easy to, other than the disassembly required, they're pretty easy to troubleshoot and then figure out. So completeness, naturally condition. Now the dial glass on this is really, really, really fragile in terms of the lettering. Now this is a solid piece of glass, which is cool. I think Radio Days may make a reproduction, and that's Radio Days, D-A-Z-E. I think they make a reproduction for this one, but I'm not positive. But all of the lettering is on the back of the glass. So if you're going to be using something to clean the glass, you want to be very, very careful. So the glass sits here, and then there's basically a gap where the dial pointer slides or glides back and forth, and then it's basically just a piece of black metal where you have the stereo indicator lamp, right, and that Pioneer lamp, and then you have the VU meter. So it creates depth, right? If I kind of move this around, you can kind of maybe see that, see how the lights kind of move back behind there. Sorry, that was not probably a smart thing to do. See if I can get this line back up. So hopefully you kind of understand what I'm saying. So the lights sit back behind there on a piece of metal. There's about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a 3/8 of an inch gap between the back or that metal and then the back of the glass. The very first one of these that I had, I made the mistake of trying to clean the back of the glass because it was smudged. It had gunk on it. I put Windex on a cotton swab, and the second I touched some of the numbers, they came right off. So these are very, 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 very fragile. If you're going to clean the glass on this, do not spray directly because spray can actually get up over this lip and come back down the other side and basically ruin the numbering on the back of the glass. So what I always do and what I advise people to do is I take a microfiber cloth, put the smallest amount of Windex on there, and then I clean it, or I'll take like an eyeglass wipe or something like that. But I don't want any possibility, right, of that ammonia-based cleaner to go onto the back. Cleaning the back of that, you have to take the faceplate off, disassemble this, pull the glass out very carefully, and then I don't even like to use like Dawn dish soap and water. I'll try to get it off with just a dry cloth, very, very carefully, not rubbing too hard, because again, it will come right off. This one I actually had to use a little bit of Dawn, but it came out okay, and then I was able to get it cleaned up. So that's a big thing. So the reason I mention that is you want to look out for the lettering. It's very common for some of the lettering or the numbers or the little dial glass, what do you call it? Where those dashes and dots are, or Pioneer or something like that to be gone. FM stereo gone. I mean, this glass is in perfect condition. This actually came from a guy, this was the original owner that sold this to 402 Vinyl, bought it when he came back from Vietnam. So he took very, very good care of his gear. So condition of the glass, condition of the switches, condition of the cabinet. This is in a nice metal case. So if you don't have the wooden cabinet, it still presents very well. This one's in really, really good shape. So those are the big things to look for. Now, I've priced so many of these, I didn't even have to look it up. Oh, hopefully when I go to edit this, my pricing information isn't too far off. If it is, whatever the images show, and I'll put a little bit of text up. But here's, because I've looked at so many of these, I've worked on so many of these, we've sold so many of these, I can almost tell you what these run in my sleep. So start off with one of these, museum piece, recapped, in the wooden cabinet, manuals, box, all of those things, over $400, but I wouldn't go crazy. These are not $800,000, $900,000 receivers. Naturally, if I find something that I think is a price that's crazy, I'll put it up. I don't know. Again, I didn't even look at pricing information on this. 400 or more. One of these in good condition, hasn't been recapped, not in the wooden cabinet. And by the way, the wooden cabinet is about $100. So I'm going to give you prices in the wooden cabinet that I'm used to seeing. Okay. If this were in the wooden cabinet, in this condition, or maybe even in this condition outside of the wooden cabinet, because there's really nothing wrong with this. Oh, one other thing. Sorry, I'm kind of chasing a bunny down a trail. Sometimes you'll come across these where the lettering is it's kind of faded and there's a little bit of ghosting that happens. And again, I think this lettering is also very sensitive to the type of cleaner that's used. So all of this stenciling is just, it's in perfect condition, right? But sometimes it'll be a little bit more brown and it will kind of like bleed, right? There's a little bit of a ghost image there. So that's one other thing you want to be aware of. So anyway, like this condition, this is like a $300-ish receiver, $250, $300, maybe $350 in the wooden cabinet, right? So I could see $250 to $300. Or $250 to $350, right? Maybe $450 for one in the cabinet. So that's one that's in really good condition, usable, maybe a minor service to it, but certainly not a recap or anything like that. To get one of these for parts, even in the cabinet, less than $200. I think the TA that I bought, and if I can find the sale when I bought the TA, but it was a long time ago. I don't even know if it's going to be in eBay anymore. I think I got it for like $150 shipped in the cabinet, and that thing was in perfect condition. So these are sleepers. I mean, they're not for everybody. It doesn't have the look, necessarily that everybody is down with, but I think they're gorgeous receivers. They're built like tanks. They're gorgeous receivers. They're rock solid. Again, easy to repair to an extent, except for the disassembly required. They're great, and they made a ton of them. So this is one of those, for 200, 300, 400 in terms of, as far as pricing goes. Less than 200 for one that's not working or it's, in pretty bad shape. And when I say less than 200, I mean 150, 125, something like that. Right, so less than 2, right around 3, and then more than 4 is kind of what I have seen. Now this one I'll probably price at, when I put it out at 402 Vinyl, probably $300, maybe $250. right? Maybe 275, somewhere around there. And we always have, it seems we always have one of these. For the longest time though, they would not last. I would put one out and it would sell within a couple of weeks. They look great. They sound great. I'm a fanboy of the 1000 series Pioneer. I am. I currently don't own one. I'm looking for another TA. If I find another TA, it will be a part of my collection forever and ever. Amen. Right? Because I really kicked myself for getting rid of the TA with the tube FM section, and that thing worked wonderfully. I'm not actively looking for one, but if one crosses my bench, or if it just happens to pop up when I'm looking for one on eBay, I'll definitely buy one. So there you have the Pioneer SX1000 TD. Awesome receiver, beautiful receiver in my opinion. Can't go wrong with one. I could sit here and talk about this all day, but that is, if it isn't boring enough as it is, that would even get more boring than I've been so far. So, as always, if you like what you see, hit subscribe. If you like these videos, hit notify so you know when a new video comes out. I release them every Friday. I typically do a service and then a gear review. I have a year of content in the queue right now, so you're seeing this about a year after I recorded it. So it's probably long gone from 402 vinyl. So anyway, I will catch you all in the next video.